securing planets, resolving incidents, and deploying starships. That's right, it's Star Trek Captain's Chair to Boldly Go from WizKids. We're using the To Boldly Go version of Captain's Chair, but these rules are pretty comprehensive for any version of the game you might own, no big deal. In this intergalactic deck builder, 1 to 2 players take the chair of a starship captain. By recruiting personnel, encountering new life, and completing missions, they'll attempt to acquire more victory points than their opponent. Provided the players don't get overwhelmed with dangerous incident cards, the player with the most victory points at the end of the game wins. Setup begins with the market strip placed in the middle of the game space perpendicular to each player's personal play area. Separate common cards based on their suits, shown in the top left corner of each card, into person, cargo, ship, ally, encounter, and incident. Separately shuffle each of these decks and place the person, cargo, ship, and ally decks above their symbol on the market strip face down. Then reveal 1 card from each and place it below that symbol. Set the encounter deck face down above all this rotated sideways, and set the incident deck to one side of the market strip, leaving the opposing side open for a junk pile, or space detritus as I like to call it. Next, create the location deck by separately shuffling the starting locations and the advanced locations. Set the advanced locations deck below the market, also sideways. Draw, but don't reveal, 1 card from the starting locations deck and set it on top of the advanced locations face down. Then draw 3 starting location cards in a face-up row between the 2 players' play areas, returning all remaining starting locations to the box. Take all the stardate cards with your player count on them. We're setting up for a 2-player game today, and sort them based on sequence number in the top right with the number 1 card on top. Set this near the location deck. Then create a supply of dilithium, latinum, and glory tokens above the market, along with the standees and ship tokens. Set a number of indicated glory tokens on top of the stardate card. Each player chooses a captain to play and takes their crew deck and crew boards. They also take 1 mission completion token, 1 each of dilithium, latinum, and glory, and 3 action tokens. Set the remaining 3 action tokens in the supply. Randomly select a player to take the starting player token. Set the crew board along the left side with its basic side up for your first game. Set 3 specialty markers on the 0 space of each of the 3 specialty tracks. You've got research, influence, and military. Place the captain card and status card, if any, near the crew board. Leave a space for a duty officer card above the captain card. Shuffle all the available cards into a face-down draw deck and set it below the captain card. Place all development cards in a face-up pile to the left of the status card, if any, displaying their bottom rows of information. Shuffle the reserve cards and set them in a face-down deck on top of the development pile, rotated sideways. If the crew decks have any controlled locations, set them face up in a row to the right of the duty officer space. Do the same for deployed cards, if any, in a row next to the captain. The open area below both of these rows is known as the staging area. If the deck contains any cards that are labeled incident deck, shuffle those back into the incident deck in the central area. None of the decks in this box have those cards, but maybe you're playing in the 25th century and there might be some new expansions. If there are any discard cards, place them in a personal discard pile to the right of the staging area. Place uniquely colored away team tokens equal to the indicated number on the captain's card, and if there's a plus symbol, see the rulebook for additional setup. Finally, each player draws 5 cards from their deck to form their starting hand. One note before we get started, the 3 types of resources, Latinum, Dilithium, and Glory, are not all created equally. When a game effect allows the players to take Latinum or Dilithium, they take it from the supply. Glory, however, is gained from the top Stardate card. More on Stardate cards shortly. Also, spending these resources sends them back to the supply, including Glory. And when paying resource costs, Glory can act as either 1 Latinum or 2 Dilithium. Gameplay occurs in turns, starting with the first player. Each turn is divided into 4 steps: resupply, control, action, cleanup. First up in the resupply step, the active player activates any resupply operations on their cards. Usually players won't have these on their first turn. Then in the control step, One neutral location located between the players is secured by the active player if they have at least 3 tokens present and at least 2 more than their opponent. These tokens can be in the form of ship tokens or away teams in any combination. For instance, if I have 4 tokens here and my opponent has 2, I can secure this location. First, the opponent gains glory for each of their tokens at that location. Remember that glory is always gained from the top of the star date card rather than the common supply. Then remove all away teams on the location back to their captain, and all ships there are dismissed, meaning their standees go back to the supply and their cards go in the player's discard pile. The securing player takes the location into their location area, immediately resolves its control operation, and refills the empty space in the neutral location row. Next, in the action step, the player resolves various card operations. These are either the play operation on cards when they enter the play area from a player's hand, or activation operations on various cards already in play. There's some caveats, which we'll get to shortly. Additionally, they resolve up to 3 actions. Actions are operations noted with an action marker icon requiring the player to assign a marker to the card as a reminder. While players are not limited in the number of operations they can resolve, they are limited to a maximum of 1 action per action token. We'll talk more about actions and operations shortly, but let's finish up with the turn structure, shall we? Finally, in the cleanup step, the player performs any cleanup operations on cards in play, then resolves any stardate cards placed in their staging area. I'll explain how you get those in a sec. Then remove it from the game. They'll then place 1 glory token from the current stardate card and place it on one of the 4 cards in the market. They then discard all cards in their staging area, and they may discard any number of cards in their hand. Finally, they draw cards up to their hand size, which is usually 5, refresh any exhausted cards in play, and return action tokens to their available side. Play then passes to the opponent. And that's the turn structure. Let's look at some of the important mechanics of the game. Deck cycling and enlisting. Whenever a player needs to draw or interact with the top card of their deck and it's empty, they reshuffle their discard pile to make a new deck. Whenever this happens, they also enlist a reserve. They put the top card of their reserve deck on top of the newly created draw deck. This causes players' decks to increase by 1, and they are guaranteed to draw the newly enlisted card next. When shuffling and the reserve deck is empty, the player may enlist a development, paying the development cost of any one of the development cards and place it on top of their deck. These cards are generally quite powerful or provide victory points. Acquiring new cards. There are 2 main ways to acquire cards from the market: gain and scan. Gain allows the player to gain a card from the matching suit, either the face-up card or the top of the face-down deck, and place it on top of their deck or discard pile. If the gain keyword has a trait instead of a suit, the player may take any face-up card with that trait from the market. Any cards with resources placed on them are acquired by the player. Scan allows the player to look at a number of cards of the indicated suit from the face-down deck and either take one of those cards or take the face-up card and add them to the top of their draw deck or discard pile. Unselected cards from the face-down deck go to the bottom of that deck. When scanning for a trait or icon, the player takes a face-up card with that designation, or they select a single suit and reveal cards from the top of the suit's deck until a card with that trait or icon is found and gained. The rest of the revealed cards are shuffled back into that deck. If none are found, the player can select a new suit and repeat this process. If no cards are found in the 4 suits, the player gains 2 glory as compensation. Some game effects instruct players to take a card from the supply. In these cases, the cards are added directly to the player's hand. These generally occur with encounter and incident cards. Operations. These are the main mechanics of the game and come in a variety of flavors. Play operations can be played from a player's hand to their staging area, and the player selects one of the play effects on the card. Cards played generally stay in the staging area unless an effect moves it to another location, like deploy, which puts a ship in the fleet area. Table operations can be activated on cards in the fleet area, location area, or by the duty officer. Cards in the staging area cannot have their table operations activated. These come in 3 main types: Activation, which exhausts the card, turning it 90 degrees, signifying it cannot be activated again until unexhausted. Passive, which are always in effect even if the card's exhausted. And Reaction, which can be triggered when their conditions are met, even and especially on the opponent's turn. Reactions are also exhausted when used. Specialties come in 3 types: research, influence, and military. When an effect increases a specialty, move the cube to the right on the track. Some operations require certain levels of specialties in order to be activated, and some cards provide multiplier victory points on a corresponding track. More on that in the end game. Stardate cards hold the glory for players to acquire. When a card is emptied of all its glory tokens, follow the instructions on the card, which typically say to give it to your opponent. They will then resolve it on their cleanup step on their turn. Then add glory tokens on the next Stardate card as listed. Once the last Stardate card is emptied, all future glory is gained from the supply and the end game is triggered. Beamed cards. Some effects beam cards onto ships or locations, allowing the player to tuck that card underneath, providing the traits in the top right corner. They're still considered in play, and their traits count for game effects, but their operations are inaccessible while in this state. Locations represent planets or stations, and once controlled by a player, provide icons and operations to them. The warp effect on cards allows ships to move from a player's fleet area to a location controlled by the player or in the neutral zone, taking any beamed cards with them. Away team tokens contribute to control attempts, however, they can only be added to a neutral location if the opponent does not have more ship tokens present than the active player. The captain's log is a pile of cards placed under a captain's card using the log keyword. These cards are removed from a player's deck, are not considered in play, but do count for the purposes of final scoring. Missions, 1 on the basic side of a captain's board and 3 on the advanced, provide a goal for players during the game. Once achieved, the player gains the reward, sets a mission completion token on the mission, and discards all beamed cards that contributed to the mission. Each mission can only be completed once. Players alternate turns activating operations, deploying ships, and controlling locations. The game can end in 2 possible ways: burn or resolution. Burn occurs if the last incident card was acquired. The game ends immediately, and the player who has less incident cards amongst their cards, including in their hand, deck, discard, player area, or captain's log, but not their reserve, wins the game. Resolution occurs once the final Stardate card empties. Play continues until the second player completes their turn, giving each player an equal amount of turns. Then both players take 1 more turn each. Then proceed to final scoring. Players count all cards in their play area except cards in their reserve and development pile. Players gain 1 victory point per glory token, 1 VP per token on neutral locations, points from end-game operations on in-play cards, points on the bottom right of cards in play or not, points from development cards, points from focus cards based on the multiplier reached on a captain's specialty track, provided they've completed at least 1 mission. See the rules for intricacies of focus cards. And if playing on the advanced side of the captain's board, points for completed missions. The player with the highest score wins. And that's the basics of Star Trek Captain's Chair. For a guide to the numerous keywords, there's a great glossary of terms which help in the first few games. Additional examples and deck introductions can be found in the rulebook as well. There's also a helpful learning mode called the Cadet Training Mode, where you can go through the motions of gameplay to familiarize yourself before you're teaching a friend. Whew! That's a lot. I'm Becca Scott, this is Good Time Society, and that was fun but depleted my energy store, so I'm gonna go get some lunch at 10 forward. Meanwhile, you can like this video, subscribe to the channel, sign up for our Patreon, and come on back for more great games and good times. Bye-bye.